Hello everyone, welcome to this lecture in the GitHub Masterclass. In the previous two lectures, we have looked at what is Git, and in the second lecture, we have looked at how does Git exactly enable version control and why do we need version control. Before we go ahead and install Git on our laptop and do some hands-on demonstration activities with Git, we will need to create a GitHub account and create a GitHub repository. This is because later we will be linking Git with GitHub. So, first, it's very important that all of us have created a GitHub account and have a GitHub repository. In this whole course, we have a separate section entirely dedicated to GitHub. So, I'm not going to explain too much about GitHub and GitHub repositories. The whole goal of this series of lectures is to give you knowledge about Git and how to use Git, but we still need to create a GitHub account and a GitHub repository. So I'm going to walk you through those steps as if you are a beginner and you have not created a GitHub account or a GitHub repository. If you have done this before, you can feel free to skip this part for now and directly jump to the next part. So what exactly is GitHub? GitHub is a website that allows developers to store and manage code using Git. Now what does that mean exactly? Let's say if you're thinking of starting a new language, and let's say you're a founder of a new language such as the Julia language, and you have collected 5 to 10 people who also are passionate about this project, and all of you want one place where you can store the current version of your code and what different people have been working on. That place is GitHub. So here you see github.com/julia lang/julia. So Julia Lang is the organization name, and that organization has a project which is called as Julia. So what I'm seeing right now on my screen is also called as GitHub repository. Why repository? Because one project is generally associated or called as one repository. Everything related to the Julia project, all the code files, all the changes will be hosted here, will be stored over here, and it's sometimes referred to as repository. We can also call it project, but everywhere, every GitHub project is called as a GitHub repository, and you have a separate website link for every repository. So it's that place where you can store and manage code. So you can have code files, you can have different branches, multiple people can work here together. So here you can see about 1500 people have worked together on this GitHub repository, on the Julia GitHub repository. Similarly, if you are writing a book, you will create another repository, which is another project, and that will have a separate link. So here's a book which people have been writing for machine learning systems. This is another GitHub repository. When you are preparing for job interviews also, you need to have multiple GitHub repositories on your profile. Generally, one repository corresponds to one project. So if you have worked on a machine learning project, or if you have worked on a DSA project or a JavaScript project, for each of these you will have a separate repository, and when you have your resume, you will provide the link to the repository on the resume. That is how the person who is screening you, the HR or the human resources person, they can just go to that link and see what all you have done in that particular project. So here is my GitHub repository, and here you can see that I have several projects here. Here is my GitHub account, and here you can see that I have 76 repositories associated with this GitHub account, and every repository essentially corresponds to one project which I have been working on. So this is what is meant by GitHub, and this is what is meant by repository. Now let's go ahead and create an account on GitHub and create our first repository or our first project, which we will later link with Git. So here I'm going to show you everything step by step. So first you will need to go to github.com. I already have a account here, so I'm going to sign out and sign in with a different email address. So let me sign out from here right now. So okay, when you go to github.com, and if you don't have an account already, you will see a page which looks something like this. And then you will need to click on sign up. When you click on sign up, what you will need to do is that it says welcome to GitHub, let's begin the adventure. You will need to input your email address. So I'm using the email address of Vijwara, hello@vijwara.com. Continue, and I'll create a password which is not very weak. So this is a strong password, and then I'll create a username. So let's say Vijwara AI is the username, and then I'll click on continue. Email preferences, I don't want to receive occasional product updates, so I'll click on continue here, and I'll receive a link to verify my account. So I'll click on verify here. Use the arrows to rotate the object to face in the direction. Okay, so now it seems correct, so I'll click on submit. So here it's verifying whether I'm a human or not. Now I'll head over to our email and I'll check the code if I've received any. Okay, so once you create an account and you verify your email address, you will be able to sign in to GitHub with the username and the password which you had entered. So I'm just doing that right now. So here you can see now I have signed into GitHub and I can see this entire screen in front of me right now. This is pretty confusing, right? And there are so many things happening here. So do not worry about this. Just head on to this icon at the top right. And when you click on this icon, you'll see some simple menu here: your profile, your repositories, your projects, etc. So you can click on your profile right now and you should be able to see that okay, this is the name your. So if someone asks for your GitHub name or GitHub handle, you can find it over here. So this is my GitHub handle right now, and here you can see that I have no contributions and I don't have any public repositories yet, which means I don't have any public projects which have been created through GitHub yet. Now, as I have demonstrated in the slide here right now, we can create our GitHub profile and do some cool things with it. So, for example, let me go back, and here on the home screen, you will see you introduce yourself with a profile README. So, you can click on create over here, and then you can GitHub will automatically create this README file for you. So, I'm just going to click on this commit changes over here, and you can see that now when you head over to your github.com, you will see that this readme file has been created. So this says that hello, I'm Vijwara AI, etc, etc. Actually, a first repository has already been created automatically by GitHub through this activity. So now if you go to your repositories, you'll see that one repository was automatically created by GitHub when you clicked on adding your profile. So this is fine. We are now going to click our own repository completely from scratch, or our own project from scratch. So let's say you are working on a project, you have joined a company and you're working on a machine learning project with a group of collaborators, and you have 4 or 5 people in your project. So all of you want to collaborate on a single GitHub repository, and you have been tasked with creating this repository. So what you do is that you go to your profile, click on your repositories, you click on new over here, and then you type in the repository name. So I'm just going to type in here machine learning project. Okay, and in the description, this is optional, but you can write that this is a project um, for achieving the goals discussed in in Vijwara machine learning product meet. And then you will have an option to let's say create a public repository, or you can even create a private repository. So if you choose public, anyone on the internet can see this repo, but if you choose private, then you can choose who will be added to this repository. So if you're in a company setting working with 5 or 6 people, it's better to create a private repository. But if you want your repository to be viewed by everyone, such as if you're applying for jobs, and if you want your GitHub projects to be seen by a wide range of people, it's better to have the repository setting set to public. And then I'm going to initialize the repository with add a readme file. What's a readme file? Basically, it's that file where the description can be written about what this repository is for exactly. Why is it created? What is the purpose of this repository? No need to worry about this git ignore, etc. By default, the branch will be main. I'll come to this part in the subsequent lectures, but for now, you can just type in all of these things and click on create repository. So with this, you will see that the first repository which you yourself have manually created has been done, and this is the readme file. So the information which you added, this is a project for achieving the goals discussed in Vijwara machine learning product meet, has been added in the readme file. You can even go to this edit icon over here, and you can make some changes over here. This project involves, and you can mention the names of the people. So I'm just going to say 5 people, and we will work and collaborate together on this project. Okay. So here you would be seeing two icons: cancel changes and commit changes. So you might be thinking, I understand what's cancel changes, but what's this commit? So without knowing it, you are actually creating your first GitHub commit right now. When I'm going to click on GitHub commit, commit essentially means that you're committing to change this file fully, and that's now a permanent record which is maintained by Git or GitHub. I'll come to this later, but for now you can just click on this commit changes. You can add a description here that added some extra text, and you can click on commit changes. So you have actually successfully made your first GitHub commit right now, which means you have changed something in the GitHub repository and you have added this to the code file. So the GitHub commit has been made, and the GitHub repository is also initialized. So this is your first GitHub repository which you have manually created, and that is titled Machine Learning Project at the moment. And the description has also been written over here in the README file. So we have successfully created our GitHub account. We have successfully created our GitHub repository, and we have not made too many contributions. So no need to worry about this. We clicked on this new, and we created a new GitHub repository. So if this is the first time for you to create a GitHub repository or a GitHub project, it's great because the same procedure is actually followed for creating all subsequent repositories and projects. Later, what we'll be doing is that in the next lecture, we will link Git with the GitHub repository which we have created, and then install Git, and then see how the bridge between Git and GitHub essentially operates. We'll be working with this project and this Vijuara AI, which is the company's repo, for the rest of the lectures. Thank you so much, everyone, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lectures.